Hey guys, Lockie here, and in this video, I'm gonna go over 7 things that I learned from a one-on-one mentor call I just had with one of my dream mentors, which was really exciting. I paid him $10,000 for 60 minutes of his time, and here's what I learned. Now, I'm not gonna disclose his name for privacy reasons, but to give you some context on who the guy actually is, he's essentially like a digital marketer. But he's like an innovator, so he's got a lot of experience. You know, he's in his, I'd say like late 40s, and he's been around the game for a really long time. He took a business that's very similar to one of our businesses that we run right now, from 0 to $75 million in sales in 6 months from scratch. And he also has done over $1 million a day multiple times. So he's a really experienced guy, super switched on, not just from like a marketing perspective, but also he's quite a contrarian. So what that means is essentially he thinks very different to most people, which I really value. So going into the call, I had 3 clear objectives that I wanted. I wanted him to break down the acquisition funnel for one of our businesses. So how we get new clients in. I wanted him to look at all the marketing assets, basically rip it to shreds and tell me how I can improve it, because he has a lot of specialized knowledge in that field. The second thing was I wanted strategic advice on how we can actually present our offering in a better way, like from a new position. So essentially, how do you take an existing product and change the positioning of it entirely so that you can sell something, I don't want to say similar to anyone else in the marketplace, because I think there's some unique aspects about the product that we deliver. However, so we can't even be compared to anybody else in the world when it comes down to that product from a customer's point of view, which is really cool. And then number 3, I wanted his feedback on how he could tailor one of our acquisition funnels, which is just basically like marketing stuff, so that we can scale it internationally. So those were the 3 objectives that I had going into this call. Okay, lesson number 1, and let's just say the mentor's name was John, just so it's easier for me to describe it. So the first thing John did was, even though those were the 3 things I told him I directly wanted to do, he started off getting a baseline of the situation, which is obviously, you know, it's common sense, but like it was just interesting that he's very high level. And even though I was like, all right, I need these 3 things from you in the next 60 minutes. He's like, okay, cool, let's put that to the side for the second. What I typically like to do is just get a nice baseline understanding of where you guys are at to actually make sure that we're working on the number 1 most needle moving task. And funnily enough, none of the 3 things that I wanted to discuss, we actually ended up discussing or needing to discuss, which was like the first massive lesson is, if you are going into a mentorship call with someone, or you are looking at your business or whatever it is, like a hobby or a skill or something, you're trying to get better at it, the first step is to actually just get a baseline based on the metrics of how you're performing already at that level, taking 2 steps back out of what you want to focus on and actually saying, okay, what is the number 1 most needle moving task that we can actually do to grow in this area? For me, I thought it was marketing. But basically, he looked at our marketing. He's like, okay, cool, walk me through the statistics. So walk me through, how do you guys get leads? What's that cost per lead look like? What do your sales look like? What does your ROI look like, which is basically a return on investment. So if I invest XYZ into marketing and I get XYZ out of it, how much profit do we make? Like, what's the return, like the ROI? And if all those metrics are really good, then do we actually need to improve this specific piece of marketing that I was very focused on? And you know, a way you can describe this, an old adage is, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like nails, which is why it's so valuable to get a third-party perspective, not only on your business, but also even just your habits, you know, your standards, your limiting beliefs, because other people can bring a fresh angle to it and help you identify things that you're focusing on that you don't even need to focus on. Okay, lesson number 2, this is what we kind of moved directly into after the introduction of the call. And honestly, this like next 5 minutes paid for the whole call, the whole $10,000 and well and truly and beyond. And that was the difference between a localized level versus a globalized level. So for context, I went in there, I'm like, okay, we need to improve this aspect of our marketing, this aspect of our marketing, this aspect of our marketing. And he's like, okay, walk me through the metrics. And for context, we do around about $7.5 million at the moment in cash collected revenue. And we do that at around about a 5x ROI. So if I spend $100,000 in a month on marketing, on ads, we'll pull out $500,000. Now, you can definitely get way better ROIs than that. Like, I think that everything can always be improved, but as an industry standard, that's like pretty good. For our acquisition cost to be 20% of our P&L, it's pretty low. and that's not including like back end and other things. So he basically said like, look, I can give you lots of marketing advice to improve the ads, to improve these different aspects of your marketing funnel. However, when it's performing so well to begin with, you're just as likely to break it as you are to improve it. Now, that doesn't mean you should never work on it, but the distinction he gave me was a lot of businesses, they are inefficient at a localized level. So think like the small little menial tasks that you need to do on a daily basis. But on a globalized level, they're very efficient. So for example, think about McDonald's. On a localized level, the food doesn't taste that great. The service isn't that amazing, right? The restaurant may not be that clean. It's usually pretty noisy with kids screaming. So on a localized level, it's inefficient. But on a globalized level, across tens of thousands of stores, it is extremely efficient. Where if you go down to one of your local cafes that's run by a mom and dad, they may know, on a local level, it's very efficient. You walk in the door, they greet you and they show you to your table. You know, they know their frequent customers by name. The quality of the coffee and the food is all made with tender love and care, and it's like really good, but they can't scale that to 1,000 different stores. And so the lesson here for me was he basically said like, I can give you these localized benefits, you know, how to change the introduction to an ad here, how to work on this aspect of the funnel. However, when the metrics are already pretty good, you don't want to get like sucked into only focusing and working on a localized level, because you're going to put in a lot of effort, and not only could you actually make a mistake and it could break it, but even it's just not the number one needle moving thing. You can put a lot of time and effort into it and it may make marginal increases. Like we could get the ROI to a 5.5. However, it'd be better if we put strategic thought towards more of a globalized level, okay? So what could that actually be for context? So what that could be is, at the moment, I would say 80% of our customer base is based in Australia, right? And so one thing that we have been planning on doing for a while now is expanding into the United States, Canada, and Europe, which is, you know, UK and everywhere around there, right? And we're really excited to do that. And we've been putting that off for a while, not from a procrastination point of view, but just because it's such a massive task. And working on a US time zone can sometimes be challenging for me in particular, because I'm based here in Bali at the moment. And so that is actually what we need to be working on. It's like we need to make that work. Like if we just take our system and we literally just duplicate it in the United States, we instantly double our business. I mean, we'll actually significantly more than double our profit, because we don't have to pay GST and a whole bunch of other stuff that's, you know, that's getting in the weeds of Australia versus America. However, it's just way more thinking on a globalized level. And coming into this call, I wasn't thinking that way, and he could have very easily just said, okay, cool, I'll give you some marketing advice, blah, blah, blah. But he took 2 steps back that I wasn't able to do myself because I was so focused on the marketing. So what I would advise you to do, the lesson for you, is try to at least consider and write down a list of what could I improve on a localized level in my business or in my skill or even in my job. Like if you're trying to improve things in a 9-to-5 job and get a raise or get a promotion, what are some like day-to-day little small things that you can do? But then also take 2 steps back and think, from a globalized level, what could I actually do that are really big needle movers, like coming up with a way that, you know, something's never been done before. Or for example, maybe you're at work and you think, okay, this is what I can do to improve my day-to-day job, but how could I actually go and help another department of the company? You know, I've got some spare time over here. How can I go and actually ask the manager over there, who I've never spoken to before, I don't work in their department, how can I actually help their team improve? And you can create synergies between teams in your own 9-to-5. You know, if it's if you produce music, maybe you're working on like the little skills over here, but then you think, how could I get inspiration to make my music from a completely different genre, or go learn from a different mentor that I would have never considered before? And it creates this huge shift in the way that you do things to a new level. Lesson number 3 is hard work pays. And this is when I actually learned indirectly through him. So it was very validating for me. I had a big smile. I was all giddy on the call because he was going through our marketing and he was very complimentary. So our marketing is based 100% on like his teaching and his methodologies. So for the past 6.5 to 7 years, I've studied this man and all the content he's put out, all the marketing he's put out, all the books he's written, all the seminars he's spoken at. I've got like Google Drives of Google Docs of notes that I've taken and reformatted from his speeches, and I've been applying it to our marketing and all of our businesses for the last 6.5, 7 years, so almost a decade, like diligently. And as he was looking through it, he was like, wow, like this is really well done. Not only have you like nailed a lot of the strategic concepts, but I can tell you've got a very thorough understanding of them. And so the reason I say that is because that was very validating. Like that made me so happy. Like I got so much happiness, and it was like a bit of a self-esteem boost, a bit of a pat on the back for me. And the reason I say this to you is because I spent 6 years grinding to get 6 seconds of feedback from the only one person who could ever actually give me feedback that I would really care about in that department. Not that I would appreciate other people's feedback, but like he's kind of a bit of an idol to me in this department, right? So think about it this way, like all the tedious work, like think about your passion, the thing that you want to be the best at in the world. Think about all the tedious work, all the boring work, all the work you do in the dark, behind the scenes, where no one can see it, no one can hear it. And you do it for years and years and years without any clapping, without any appreciation, without anyone saying, hey, you're doing a good job, hey, keep that up. And often at times it can feel so like I'm just doing this for nothing, especially when you don't have the outcome as well, right? However, this is a lesson I learned in retrospect. The people who matter, like the person who actually matters, like your idol, the person at the top who will be able to fully appreciate how good you are or how much you've learned or how much you've progressed in the way that really matters, they'll notice. They will notice. 99 out of 100 people will never see it, will never appreciate it. They'll never give you a high five or the pat on the back that I don't want to say that you're looking for, but like, let's be real, it feels nice. But that one person who's really high above you, who has been through the same grind, the same struggle themselves, they will recognize it. Not only will they recognize it, but you will stand out from the crowd massively. And so I really want to encourage you, for whatever your passion is, whatever your dreams are, really fucking grind. Like do the boring work, do the tedious shit, do the stuff that no one's going to give you praise for, do it behind the scenes, do it like, who was it? I think Muhammad Ali said, you need to work hard in the dark to shine in the light. It was such an awesome quote. And I think like, I've always kind of like understood that, like, of course, people aren't going to give me a pat on the back. I need to do the work and the results will speak for themselves, and that's completely okay. I don't need praise. But when he gave me the praise, I was like, wow, like that's 6 seconds of him just saying like, I've done a really good job and he can tell that I've understood it. That took me like 6.5 years of working really hard, like really, really hard, going back through his speeches, getting like transcripts printed out, like literally printing his speeches and the transcripts into a book that I would carry with me back in the day when I used to take the train to my 9 to 5. I wouldn't listen to music and I would read this printed out book of transcripts of his speeches, right? Like I took it to a pretty insane level with the study that I did, and it was all worth it. Not that you should need any validation or anything like that, but just know that if you feel like you're not getting appreciated, it's probably because, number one, you maybe not have done the work to be appreciated. And number two, the people around you, those aren't the people you should care about, need, or even want the appreciation for. It should be the person way at the top, and they will recognize it. Lesson number 4 is actually a very interesting one. This is like a bit of a business specific one. So I'll try and think about how I can apply this to everybody. But I essentially asked him, we're at 7.5, in around about, I would say 6 months, we would have passed about 12.5, 13 million a year. What do you see stopping companies? Because a lot of people in this space, they cap out at 12 to about 15 million a year in revenue. What do you see the companies who cap out at that level? What are the mistakes they make that stop them from getting to 30 and 50 million a year plus, like that level? Because that's where we want to like blow through to. And he said, that's a good question. And the answer to that is called regression to the mean. I was like, regression to the mean. What is, like, how do you mean? Didn't mean to rhyme that. And he basically said that when you're at the 12 million a year, so basically you're doing about $1 million a month. Typically that's based on one product, one avatar, and often even one marketing channel. So it's quite high risk. And so what a lot of people do is they get to that level and they think then to get to 30 to 50 million a year, what I need to do is I need to grow this one thing I have bigger and bigger and bigger. While that isn't bad, and there's definitely examples of people who've done that, you're putting yourself in a very, very risky position, because in one change you can have a bullet put into your business, and that is where you kind of like regress to the mean, and that's why it can be hard to scale and you can cap out. So, because it doesn't have to be a detrimental thing. So for example, if you have one product offering, what happens if the marketplace shifts? Like everyone was interested in this thing, but now everyone's now more interested in this thing. And that can happen over a 10-month timeline, right? And it can even happen faster these days with the way things are going. Like what happens if one of your marketing channels, the platform that you're advertising to, for example, let's say we're on Instagram, what if they make an update to their ad policies and you can no longer run ads, or maybe it just reduces the efficiency of your ads by like 60%. That would massively hinder it. So therefore you need to diversify ad platforms. What happens if there's like a regulatory thing, or a competitor comes into your marketplace with a new software or something, they cut your feet out from underneath you. So it was very interesting to hear him describe this, because it's definitely not something that we've, I would say, considered too much at the moment, because what we have is working, so we're just trying to put like our foot on the gas with it, right? And so what he said was, because he's done this multiple times for himself, and he does a lot of consulting for brands at the 50 to 100 million a year level. And he says what he tells the founders to do is, when things are going well, you need to allocate at least 10% of free cash flow into assets that independently have value no matter what happens. And it's bonus points if the thing that you invest into, the asset, is complementary to the main thing that you're already doing. So for example, he said something like software, right? So I can't say this example that I was going to say that he told me. Let's say, hypothetically, to give you a hypothetical example, let's say that you have like an e-commerce brand, okay? And you are scaling a fashion brand, right? So you sell clothes. Instead of just taking your clothing brand from 15 to 50 million a year by putting all the money back into employees, all the money back into ads, all the money back into stock, because what happens if something happens, or the marketplace changes, or one of your suppliers in China gets wiped out, or whatever it is, right? Instead, take 10% of that capital and invest it back into something that's independently valuable. So for example, in this scenario, it could be a software that independently you can use it to optimize like website conversion rates, right? So for example, let's pretend you develop a software that will track conversion rates on a website, and then it will use AI to give you suggestions on how to improve your website. Now that is independently valuable whether you have your e-commerce business or not, right? And it also ticks the box that you can use that to actually boost the conversion rate of your own e-commerce brand, which is the main thing. So if you're investing 10% of your free cash flow, let's just say you're at $500,000 a month profit, or $250,000 a month profit, right? And you're spending $25,000 to $50,000 plus every single month in this software. When you get to that level, if something changes and your main e-commerce business takes a hit, right? You still have this thing that is independently valuable, okay? And you can sell it to other people and they can still use it. The goal here isn't necessarily to start a separate business, because we don't necessarily want to have multiple businesses, because that you can split your focus very quickly doing that. However, it is a very, very smart play, especially if it complements the main business. So what Lucas and I started thinking about then is, okay, once we are pushing beyond 12 to 15 a year, how do we take a certain percentage of the capital? We're still decided. I think that number will go up and down, what that percentage looks like, and reinvest into something that is independently valuable no matter what happens to the main business. Because a business is really just a series of setbacks that you solve. Like, it may look more glamorous on Instagram and stuff, or on YouTube videos, but realistically, business is just problem after problem after problem. And the bigger you get, the bigger the problems get. It's not like, popping bottles and bottle service and, and the Maldives. that's not what it is. Like, you get paid to fix problems for people. That's what it is. So there will always be problems there. So what if one of those problems ends up being a bit larger than you would have expected? Then your business takes a hit. So that was a very, very interesting lesson. Now, I'm not gonna say the name of the example that he gave me, but essentially one of his friends had an e-commerce store, and what he did was he developed an app which allowed for one-click upsells on Shopify. So he had a Shopify store. That was his primary business that he scaled to, I think it was like 60 million a year at the time or something they were making, USD. And he wanted to have one-click upsells. So when someone buys something, the customer doesn't have to re-enter their credit card information and they can just click pay and then upsells, right? And what he did was, Shopify didn't have that at the time, which Shopify is just like an e-commerce platform and you can just build websites on it, process payments. And they built one for themselves. They took a lot of their profit margin and instead of reinvesting into, more stock for the e-commerce brand or more employees or going more international with it, they developed this one-click upsell software. And now that software is worth hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars because SaaS has pretty good multiples. And it is worth way more than the primary business of the e-commerce store, which is very interesting. Again, I think we'll have to find the balance of having multiple businesses, as I really, really don't like having multiple businesses. I think it splits your focus, but you can look at it as essentially risk aversion, and you're growing by minimizing risk, which there's a lot of inherent value in as well. So that's just a cool example. So we're gonna be keeping our mind, we're not there yet, but we're just gonna be keeping our mind open to that. Lesson number 5, and I actually really love this one. It's mentors at this level rarely give you tactical feedback, like, little action points or tactical things that you need to do to get to the next level. And I remember when I first started an online business, I hated this. I mean, I didn't actually have any mentors when I got an online business, but I used to watch videos of like very successful people giving advice. And I used to hate it because it was usually so like esoteric. And what I mean by that is it's not like, I wanted people to show me, how do I set up a Facebook ad to make 50 bucks a day? Like, how do I close a deal so I can get paid $1,000 tomorrow? I was so focused on the little tactical tricks or the ad template that was gonna get me to the next level, or like the Shopify niche that was gonna make me money overnight. And I was so focused on the tactics, and I thought, my mindset was, I'm missing the tactics. Like, it must be some sort of secret. There must be some sort of like button I can press in a way that, I don't know how to press right now, that's just gonna make money. And that does not fucking exist. And I hated that. And people used to always talk about like mindsets and character traits and things like that. And I definitely listened to it, or else I would have never achieved some level of success in online business. But it took me a really long time, and I really hated it for a long time. And I see this as a very common theme with beginners in the online business space, is you're typically so desperate to make money. Trust me, I can relate to that. That you overlook what you actually need. And it was the same for me. I got on this call with 3 things that were all tactical that I thought that I needed and I wanted his help on. I wanted to walk away with this list of changes that I had to implement on the marketing. And I fucking love it that he just basically pulled me up on it straight away and said, like, I can give you the list, dude, but that's not what you need. And when I was earlier in my business journey, I would have hated that, but now I love it. They are the best lessons to learn, because now I understand that I was missing a tactic. The tactics are all in front of you. Like, everything that you need to get to $100 a day online is on YouTube for free, probably taught by an exceptionally qualified human. But the reason you don't have it is because you're not the person, in terms of your limiting beliefs, your habits, the standards you have for yourself, your persistence, consistency, all that kind of stuff, skin in the game, that can find and utilize that information over a long enough period of time, go through the required adversity that's going to take to learn a high value skill to get the outcome. And I was the same going into this call. And so I thought it was very, very interesting that he pulled me up on that. And I think my advice for you guys watching this is, stop trying to look for like really crazy tactical feedback. It's usually something more of a mindset, like people who want to lose weight and invest in personal training and buy diet plans and stuff. I think that's fantastic that you do that. And most people do it, especially with online programs, and they do it, they think that it's like a new diet that they need, or a new way to track calories, or a new exercise program. But the truth is, all the diet advice or workout advice you'd ever need to get in shape is online for free. It's the value of having a personal trainer that holds you accountable to actually doing it, that forms the character traits that you didn't have before. It's not an information gap, it's a characteristic gap. Tell you what's another actually amazing piece of advice that I got from this mentor, from a seminar that I listened to, it wasn't on this call. He says that business, or like, opportunities, it's 20% opportunity and 80% characteristics. Most, especially beginners, they go into something thinking that it's 80% opportunity and it's 20% characteristics. So for example, a really simple one is like crypto, right? Like when the crypto thing started exploding and Bitcoin started exploding, everyone was jumping into the like, oh, this is 80% opportunity because it's just going like that, and it's 20% characteristics of actually becoming and thinking like a successful investor, because that's what you're doing. You're not just putting 10 grand in Bitcoin and then praying your fingers. However, it's the opposite. It's like it's 80% becoming a great investor, and Bitcoin is just the 20% that will actually make you successful. Also, like a little sub lesson in this is that this guy does not have a lot of followers. Like, he's not like a household name. If I said his name to you, it's very unlikely you'd know who he is. And it's because but he does have a social media presence. He puts out a lot of content, but his content is like specialized knowledge. So a lot of the people, especially in the online business space, that have millions of followers on YouTube and Instagram and stuff, the advice they put out is very generic because it has to appeal to the masses. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not a judgment. I'm just trying to educate you so you can like be a bit more selective with who you listen to. Like, I don't really listen to any YouTubers or really any people that have like, hundreds of thousands of followers, because, and there's nothing against them, it's just typically their content is more designed for the masses. However, what I'm looking for is very, very specialized knowledge from people who have a wealth of practical experience, and they're not talking about generic philosophies. They're sharing like distinctions, what I call like distinctions, and that is not very popular. So if you're looking to really level up in a field, what I would highly recommend you doing is go on YouTube or even Amazon bookstore and look for the people who don't necessarily, that have a lot of experience but don't have the biggest following, because usually there's a very strong correlation between those two, like a lack of followers and a wealth of experience. And it means that they're sharing very specialized things. They're key distinctions that can help you get to the next level. And the reason they're not popular is because most people don't want to hear it. Most people are looking for the tactic, or like what's the 3 passive income ideas that I can implement without any effort that will take me to the next level. They're not looking for the localized to globalized benefits, like those sorts of lessons. They're just not looking for it, and the mass market people, they're not speaking to it. Lesson number 6 was, as an entrepreneur who's like trying to always move really fast, man, I just need to pay people to tell me to stop doing shit more often. This is really funny. I was reflecting on this. Like, essentially, he basically told me to stop trying to do more. That's basically what like the premise of the call was. Like, on the call, I'm like, we're doing this, but we need to go faster. We need to be doing better. Here's the 3 things I want to work on. Give me the list of all the action items I need to do so I can keep sprinting at 100 miles per hour. And if you're a high performer, if you're someone who's very passionate about your craft, you always want to get better, you're always looking for the edge, and there's a little bit of impatience there. You feel like you're behind all the time and you want it yesterday. And especially if you're young. Maybe take a couple steps back and just think, is the best advice here not do nothing, but is the best advice here do nothing new? And stop trying to rush it and just keep doing more of what you're already doing. Now, in our scenario, my lens of like making changes was kind of in line with do more of what you're already doing, just do it better. But it was still, I was trying to, overdo it in terms of like changes that would have broken the efficiency we had at a localized level, right? So I had to zoom out and say, okay, well, let me stop trying to run 100 kilometers an hour on the localized level. How can I take a step back and think, what is I was gonna say 1 or 2, but realistically, what's like one globalized shift that we can make that will change the entire trajectory of the company? And so to tell you what that is, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking the existing team we have, all the systems we have, the processes we have, the client fulfillment, the culture, all the stuff that we've spent fucking ages grinding on to make really, really best in its field here in Australia, and we're simply just going to duplicate that exact thing in the US and then duplicate it in Europe. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to just triple the size of the company, not by doing all these tiny little micro things to improve it that could break it and not even get that much efficiency, but we can take these big leaps. And the cool part is because we've already validated the model, like onboarding new teammates, onboarding, clients, our systems and processes, all that kind of stuff. We've validated it here in Australia to the 7.5 million a year level. It's very, very low risk. It's almost no risk because we can go put, for example, we can invest 10 to 20% of our capital that's required to keep the wheel spinning here in Australia in America, and it's virtually guaranteed to work. There'll be some nuances in the marketplace and time zones and stuff we need to adapt to, but we're taking something that's already working and we're just bringing it to a way bigger marketplace. And there's actually a lot more efficiencies, I kind of touched on at the start, with America and Europe. And it's just like, that's way smarter than what I was trying to do. I was trying to be like, how can I change this aspect of the marketing? It's like, that's so dumb, man. Like, he just made so much sense. And it was funny because I had all these questions prepared for the call based on the marketing. And he said that, I'm like, shit, I guess I got to come up with some questions for you. And then we just spent like the rest of the call talking about the things that I've shared with you today. So that was a really big shift for me. And so to link that back to you and to myself, if what you're doing is working to a degree, or you're in the process of getting good enough at the first thing for it to work, consider paying a mentor who is above you, just simply to tell you to keep doing what you're doing. Because what happens is you'll start off on a path, whether it's learning a new way of playing the guitar, or starting a podcast, or a new training regimen to become an athlete, whatever it is for you, and you make a decision to go all in on that. So let's call that like 100% conviction, and that 100% conviction means you're sprinting 100 kilometers an hour. Then usually, if you are slightly impatient and want to always be doing better, is over time, let's say 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months, you start to feel like I need to be doing more. And so you start to veer off that path and look at ways that you can shortcut the process and do more by adding in new things, by trying to diversify, and that actually slows you down. So it's not necessarily that you need to do something new. It's almost that like you've lost 100% conviction that just doing that one thing is the fastest path. You're now at like 95% conviction, and with that additional 5% energy and brain capacity, you're analyzing all the various different things that you can do to make it happen faster. And you just need a mentor to come in and just slap you across the face and say, stop it, slow down, just keep doing it, because the industry that you're in, the skill you're trying to learn, the opportunity that you're mastering has a compound interest effect, which essentially means if you master over 5 years, the first 4 years you may get nothing. But then that last year, as you start to really master it, it goes bang in terms of results. This is how most things actually work. This is how most results work, especially most things that are worthwhile doing. Is you can put in 99% of the effort, you can get 0% of the reward for the first 1 to 5 years. Then years 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that is when you start to get good enough to see results, and it hockey sticks, because typically all the results are when you are so good at doing the thing that you could do it in your sleep and it's boring to you. That is when all the results come, and it took me a very, very long time to learn that. And after this call with this mentor, I'm going to be consistently investing larger amounts of capital in having someone slap me across the face and say, Lockie, stop trying to rush it. You just need to keep doing more of the same. Lesson number 7 is every single really successful person I've met, they actually are all very normal people. I mean, there's a couple like interesting people that I've met. I wouldn't put them in the normal basket, but the vast majority of like extremely wealthy and successful people that I've met throughout my entrepreneurial journey so far have been very normal people. Like you meet them and you're like, like you're just a normal guy who's just happened to be in this one industry for a really, really long period of time. And some of them have even had a bit of good fortune. I wouldn't describe it as luck, but have had a bit of good fortune with their success. And I say this because I especially had really, really strong self-doubts, low self-esteem in relation to being able to be successful online when I first started, because I didn't know anybody in my life who'd ever been successful in online business, and my father failed at entrepreneurship miserably. I love him as a dad, but like in terms of business, like wasn't successful. So I always thought like, can you actually make money online? Like, is it a scam? Like, can you be successful? Like, do you have to have rich parents? Do you have to be born in a certain postcode? Do you need do you need to be lucky? Do you need to have a business given to you? These are all things that I genuinely considered back when I first started. And I think it's just, I mean, this guy's so successful. It's like he's achieved things that I can only imagine of dreaming one day. And he was just a normal guy. You know, in fact, you know, a couple of the questions that I asked him, I was a bit disappointed with like the lack of sharpness. Like he definitely wasn't like a driver personality. So he's much more of like a creative, kind of like he'd lock himself in his room for a month, but he would solve this marketing thing that nobody else in the industry has ever solved by thinking like a contrarian and being a very masterful innovator. He's not like a driver personality who is like super sharp as a tack, like let's do this, we'll handle that question, bang, what's the next question? When you say this question, do you mean this or do you mean this? And I'm like, yeah, I mean that. He's like, okay, great, well I'd handle it in this way. Like it was a little bit like, you know, rambly with his answers. He would drift off for 2.5 minutes, and when you pay $10,000 for an hour, you're like looking at the clock, and I'm like, he's been talking about this random thing for 3 minutes now. I'm like, let's bring it back on topic because I really want to get an answer to this, which was just, yeah, it's just funny. So not from like from a perspective of arrogance in any way, shape or form, but I think, you know, today I've just got so much self-belief in the things that we've been able to do and that we're going to be doing moving forward in the future. And I consistently meet successful people who aren't anything crazy special. So if you have dreams, if you have aspirations to build businesses or master skills or level up in any area, and you see someone who's ahead of you and you think, man, like they must have some secret IQ or source or privilege that I don't, maybe. Or maybe you just lack self-esteem in that department and you're comparing yourself to someone who's been in the game 3 times, 4 times, 10 times, maybe even 20 or 30 years longer than you have. And if you had an additional 30 years of experience under your belt, you wouldn't be looking at that person like they've got a secret. You're just like, well, obviously they've been doing it for 30 years, so they can't fuck it up anymore. So those are the 7 lessons I learned. It was really awesome to meet someone that I've idolized and been studying for so long. If you guys have anyone in your field that you want to learn from that's been a mentor to you, I highly, highly encourage sending them an email, sending them a physical letter, DMing them on Instagram, doing whatever you need to do, and saying, hey, is there any amount of money I can pay you to get on a 20-minute, 30-minute, 60-minute Zoom call and just hit you with some questions? Because, man, those things that I learned, while they may sound simple, they've saved me like, oh man, the rabbit holes we would have gone down over the next 12 months. If I didn't get that advice, it's well and truly paid for itself. So I hope you enjoyed watching. I'm gonna be releasing some more videos like this, so stay tuned.